Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever said something with the best of intentions, only to watch the light in her eyes dim, just a little? You didn't mean to hurt her. You didn't mean to seem weak or uncertain, but suddenly she pulls away. She's polite, she's present, but not drawn to you the way she was before, and maybe you can't explain it. You replay the conversation. You wonder, was it something I said? The truth is yes, it often is something you said. Not because you're wrong, not because you're unkind, but because men and women are fluent in different emotional languages. What you say out of vulnerability, she may hear as insecurity. What you confess to connect, she may interpret as your disconnection from your purpose, your confidence, your essence. There are certain things, subtle, seemingly harmless phrases, that pierce through attraction like a pin through a balloon, and once they're said, you can't take them back. She may smile, she may kiss you goodnight, but something shifts quietly, permanently, and that is what we're going to explore today. This isn't about manipulation, it's about awareness. It's about protecting the masculine mystery that draws her in, and knowing which truths are better revealed in your presence, not your words. Do you ever feel like no matter how much you open up, something gets lost between what you say and what she hears? You try to be honest. You try to show her that you're different, that you're not playing games. You let her in, and then something changes. The conversation's cool, the spark quiets, and you wonder, how could being real cost me her attraction? It's confusing, isn't it? Because we're often told that honesty is everything, that communication is the cornerstone of any strong relationship. But what if I told you that how you speak is often more important than what you say? That there are things you might share too soon, too often, or too unfiltered, not because they're untrue, but because they change the dynamic between you in ways you didn't expect. See, attraction isn't logic. It isn't a list of facts she checks off like a resume. It's a feeling, a rhythm, a polarity. It's the invisible electricity that dances between confidence and curiosity, stability and spontaneity, vulnerability and strength. And certain things, when spoken at the wrong time, in the wrong tone, cut through that dance like a record scratch. So let's look at the first one, the thing men say when they think they're being romantic, when they think they're showing devotion. But what she hears is pressure. I don't know what I'd do without you. It sounds sweet, doesn't it? Almost poetic. You want her to know she matters, that she's special, that in a world full of distractions she is your anchor. But what begins as affection can quickly sound like emotional dependence. And to a woman, especially a woman who is still assessing who you are, that can feel like being handed a burden she never asked to carry. When a man says, I don't know what I'd do without you, he's often coming from a place of gratitude. But the message it sends is this: I don't trust myself to be whole without you. It signals that you've made her responsible for your emotional well-being. And while that may feel like intimacy to you, to her, it's the early warning sign of enmeshment. You see, love thrives in desire, not obligation. A woman wants to feel chosen, not needed. She wants to know that your life is full and stable, and that she's the cherry on top, not the thing holding it all together. When you tell her she completes you, what you're really saying is, I was incomplete before you. And that's not romantic. That's pressure disguised as praise. What's more powerful? Letting her see that your life is already lit with purpose. That your days are full, not because you're too busy for her, but because you've built something worth sharing. That when she steps into your world, she's not rescuing you, she's joining you. You're not a project she has to fix or a puzzle she has to solve. You're a man who knows himself, and that is irresistibly attractive. Now let's talk about the second one, the phrase that masquerades as humility, but actually betrays your self-worth. I'm probably not your type. It slips out in the beginning, maybe after the first date, maybe when you're texting late at night and things feel vulnerable. Maybe she just said something kind about you, and you feel the urge to downplay it. To show her that you're grounded, that you don't take yourself too seriously. But the moment those words leave your mouth, something happens in her body. Her attraction doesn't just soften, it shifts into something else entirely. Pity, maternal energy, that gentle nodding empathy a woman gives when she no longer sees you as a lover, but as someone she needs to reassure. Because here's the truth, women don't fall for the man who doubts himself aloud. They fall for the man who knows he brings value, who lets his confidence speak not through arrogance, but through presence. Through steadiness, through his willingness to take up space, not to impress, but because he's earned it. When you tell a woman you're probably not her type, what you're really saying is, I've already rejected myself on your behalf. And even if she was attracted to you, you've just cast doubt where there was once curiosity. You've told her how to feel before she's had the chance to decide. You've walked into the room and turned off the music before the dance could begin. It's not charming. It's not humble. It's self-sabotage wrapped in a joke. So what's the alternative? You meet her with presence. You don't perform. You don't overcompensate. You simply hold your ground because deep down, you know you bring something rare. You know that your story, your scars, your values are not for everyone. And that's the point. You're not here to beg for her approval. You're here to see if she aligns with your rhythm. if she can walk beside you without you shrinking yourself to fit into a version of what she might want. Now, I want to pause here for a moment, not to summarize, but to let this land. This isn't about playing a role. It's about rediscovering the version of you that doesn't need to overshare to be seen, that doesn't need to ask for validation to feel worthy. The man who shows up whole and knows that a woman's attraction isn't earned through confession but through presence. And that brings us to the third thing, the quiet killer of sexual polarity. It's subtle. It's disguised as emotional openness, but it quickly flips the script from romance to something else entirely. I'm scared you're going to leave me. Let's hold this one tenderly, because at its core is the fear every human being knows, the fear of abandonment, the ache of attachment, the memory of loss. It's raw, it's real, and it's very human. But when that fear is placed into her hands, when it becomes her responsibility to manage, soothe, and protect, it does something to the foundation between you. It makes her the emotional protector, the therapist, the one who must now carry your uncertainty while still trying to stay in her own feminine essence. And make no mistake, this doesn't mean you can't have fears. It doesn't mean you must always be stoic, unshaken, immune to the tides of love. But timing matters, trust matters, foundation matters. When these words are spoken too soon, too intensely, or too frequently, they sound less like honesty and more like anxiety looking for a home. A woman can handle your truth, but she wants to feel your spine beneath it, your ability to stand with your fear, not collapse into it. She wants to know that even when you're uncertain, you are still grounded, still leading, still holding the container of the relationship so she can relax into her softness. So when you feel the urge to say, I'm afraid you'll leave, try this instead. Breathe, center, speak from your chest, not your wounds. You can share your desire for closeness without placing the burden of your fear on her shoulders. You can say, I really value what we're building. And sometimes I catch myself wondering if you feel it too. It's vulnerable, but it's clean, it's grounded. It leaves room for her to respond, not to rescue. And that is what keeps the attraction alive. Not the absence of vulnerability, but the way it's offered, not as a plea, but as an invitation. Take a moment to sit with this. The things we say in moments of connection, those soft, unguarded spaces where love is born, they matter. And when we can become more aware of how we speak, we don't become less authentic. We become more intentional, more magnetic, more trustworthy. Because attraction isn't destroyed in grand moments. It dies in the subtle shifts, the tiny doubts, the words that seem harmless, but rearrange the energy between you like a thread slowly pulling loose from a finely woven fabric. And once that thread is gone, it's very hard to reweave. There's a moment, often unspoken, that happens between two people just as attraction begins to deepen. It's not a look or a kiss or a compliment. It's a subtle invitation. Do you trust me to be who I am? Will you still be drawn to me when I don't try to impress you? And in that quiet place, words have a particular weight. The wrong one spoken from insecurity or fear can tilt the entire balance. Let's talk about the next one. A phrase that's meant to offer transparency, but instead it turns her attention inward and invites doubt. My ex really messed me up. Now, we've all been through something. Breakups, betrayals, moments when love didn't turn out the way we hoped it would, and it's normal to carry those experiences. But when you speak about your past wounds too early, or too often, you're no longer showing her who you are now. You're anchoring yourself to the man you were then. There's a difference between being open and being unhealed. When you say, my ex really messed me up, she hears the pain, yes, but she also hears a story that hasn't resolved. A ghost that's still living inside you. And whether she says it or not, she begins to wonder, is he ready for something real? Or am I about to become the next chapter in a book that's still being written in grief? See, attraction is rooted in the present moment. It needs oxygen, aliveness, a sense that this moment between the two of you isn't being shadowed by something that came before. When a woman senses that your heart is still tethered to someone else, it doesn't matter how physically close you are. Emotionally, you feel far away. This doesn't mean you can't have a past. It means you must be in relationship with it, not ruled by it. She doesn't need to know everything that went wrong. She needs to know that you learned from it, that you're no longer carrying your story like a weight, but wearing it like wisdom. So instead of, my ex really messed me up, what if you shared, I've been through some things in love, but I've grown, and I'm more clear now than ever about the kind of connection I want to build. That's power. That's ownership. That's the energy of a man who's moved through his fire and emerged clearer, stronger, more sovereign. Women are not afraid of your scars, but they are repelled by your open wounds. Now, let's move into something even subtler, the thing that doesn't come from trauma, but from habit. Something men often say when they're trying to connect, impress, or create rapport. But instead of deepening attraction, it dilutes it. You're out of my league. It seems innocent, lighthearted, even complimentary, like you're lifting her up, giving her the pedestal. But what it actually does is place you beneath her. And when you do that, something shifts in the polarity. She can no longer relax into her feminine because she now has to hold the dynamic. She becomes the one with more power. And whether she wanted it or not, she's now managing you. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about keeping the dance alive. A woman doesn't want to feel like she's doing you a favor by being with you. She wants to feel chosen by someone worthy, desired by someone confident, not because you're perfect, but because you see yourself as her equal, a partner, not a fan. Think of it this way. If she's elegant, you don't say, "You're out of my league." You match her elegance with presence. If she's accomplished, you don't say, "I don't deserve someone like you." You let her feel your value, your purpose, your vision, your emotional intelligence. Because when a man knows who he is, he doesn't worry about leagues. He doesn't audition, he invites. He knows that if the connection is real, it's not because he tricked her into it. It's because his depth called to hers. And that's where attraction becomes magnetic. Now I want to speak to something delicate, something that so many men do without even realizing it. Not because they lack confidence, but because they've been taught that to bond with a woman, they must be emotionally naked at all times. They overshare, they pour out their darkest moments, their financial fears, their childhood traumas within the first few dates. And again, this isn't about hiding, it's about timing, about containment, about understanding that masculine energy is not about being closed, it's about being disciplined with your truth. Women aren't afraid of your depth, they crave it, but only when it's anchored in strength. Not when it's spilled out all over the table like an open journal on the first night. Why? Because it places her in the role of your emotional caretaker before she's even chosen to be in your life. It asks her to hold your pain before she's had the chance to feel safe with your strength. And it's not fair. She doesn't know yet if she can trust your energy, if you'll be a safe space for her softness. And when you unload too quickly, you take that opportunity away from her. You make her the therapist, the healer, the nurturer, before she's even been allowed to be the woman. Attraction fades not because you're honest, but because you haven't built the emotional scaffolding to hold the weight of that honesty. So what does that look like practically? It means knowing the difference between emotional transparency and emotional exhibitionism. It means being intentional with what you share. It means revealing layers over time. Not your whole life story on date number 2. Let her earn the right to see you and show her that you value her heart enough to not overload it too soon. That's what creates trust. That's what builds polarity. That's what makes her lean in and say, "Tell me more." This is the difference between a man who seeks to be understood and a man who knows he's already worth knowing. And now, I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you spoke from your fear instead of your truth? When was the last time you handed a woman your doubts and asked her to fix them? Not because you're weak, but because you forgot that presence is power. That mystery is magnetic. That silence, held with confidence, speaks more than 1,000 confessions. Because sometimes the most attractive thing you can do is not speak at all. To let her feel you, not fix you. To invite her into your world, not make her responsible for your wounds. To show her, not tell her, that you are a man who knows himself, a man who chooses his words like a craftsman chooses his tools, with precision, purpose, and deep respect for the energy he brings into every room he enters. You don't need to impress her with stories. You need to impress upon her the felt sense that you are grounded, clear, unshakable. And that is something no league, no ex, no confession can ever give you. It's something you build through awareness, through presence, through restraint. And once you have it, she'll feel it before you say a word. Attraction is a current. It flows between two people in subtle pulses, unspoken rhythms, charged silences. And often, what we assume will bring us closer can actually disrupt that current quietly, invisibly, until suddenly the connection no longer feels alive. The next thing we need to talk about is one of the most misunderstood of all, because it feels like vulnerability. It sounds like honesty. But what it truly reveals is self-doubt hiding behind transparency. I'm just being honest. It usually comes after something sharp, a criticism, a comparison, a confession that hits a little too hard. And it's followed by a shrug, as if honesty alone justifies the impact of the words. But honesty without empathy is not connection, it's emotional carelessness. When a man tells a woman, "I'm just being honest," what he often means is, "I'm uncomfortable with the space between us, so I'm filling it with my version of the truth." And more often than not, that truth is laced with insecurity or frustration about the relationship, about her behavior, about his own unmet needs. And he masks it with this idea that at least he's being real. But real doesn't mean reckless. What you say matters, but how you say it, why you say it, and whether it deepens intimacy or creates distance, that's what defines maturity. You see, a woman doesn't want to be managed with brutal truths. She wants to be met with emotional intelligence, not false positivity, not passive aggression, but clarity, intention, and respect for the energetic space you share. When a man uses, "I'm just being honest," as a defense for saying something unkind, it's not transparency, it's a lack of emotional discipline. And it tells her you are not yet aware of your impact. And that is deeply unattractive, Because attraction lives in emotional safety, not in walking on eggshells, but in knowing that your truth is a bridge, not a weapon. So if you feel something difficult rising in you, if there's something you want to express that's raw or edgy or unfiltered, pause. Ask yourself, is this helpful? Is it kind? Is it the right time? And most importantly, is this about her? Or is this really about me needing to feel in control? Because when you are honest and grounded, you don't need to defend your truth. It lands. She can feel it. It invites a response, not a retreat. Now let's move into something that's rarely talked about. It's not about what you say directly to her, but how you speak about yourself. The energy you bring when you describe who you are, how life has treated you, what you believe about your place in the world. It shows up in subtle phrases, like, nothing ever works out for me. It might sound like you're just venting, being real about your struggles, sharing a moment of defeat. But what she hears is a man who has made suffering part of his identity. A man who isn't just going through a hard time, but who believes that hard times are who he is. And no matter how empathetic or loving she is, no woman wants to fall in love with a story of defeat. Because attraction is fed by hope, by resilience, by a man's ability to face difficulty without making it the center of his identity. When you speak of yourself as someone the world always knocks down, it may win her sympathy, but it loses her desire. Why? Because she doesn't want to mother you. She wants to walk beside you, to know that when life gets hard, and it will, you won't collapse into victimhood. You'll adapt, grow, lead. When you say, nothing ever works out for me, what you're really doing is placing her in a role, the role of emotional savior, of endless encourager, of the one who now has to prove to you that this time will be different. And that's not love. That's emotional labor. She's not drawn to the man who feels sorry for himself. She's drawn to the man who acknowledges the pain and chooses to rise anyway. So speak about your struggles, yes, but from a place of reflection, not resentment. From the space of, here's what I've walked through, not, this is why life always fails me. Let your words show her that while life has challenged you, it has never broken you. That every chapter, no matter how heavy, has shaped a man who still chooses to move forward. Because that is the kind of man a woman trusts, respects, desires. And this leads us to the most quiet, dangerous sentence of them all. The one that sounds harmless, that often comes out in moments of light-hearted banter, but it hits deeper than most men realize. You're too good for me? She laughs. You smile. It's supposed to be playful, self-deprecating, a compliment disguised as a confession. But what she feels deep in her body is dissonance. Because here you are standing in front of her, wanting her, trying to build something. And yet suggesting, even lightly, that you're not worthy of it. Do you know what that does? It fractures trust. It plants the seed that perhaps you don't believe in this connection, that maybe you will sabotage it, that deep down you don't think you deserve her love. And here's the thing, if you don't believe you're good enough, why should she? Attraction isn't about perfection. It's about congruence, alignment, the felt sense that what you say, what you feel, and what you do all match. And when you tell her she's too good for you, you reveal a misalignment between your desire and your self-worth. And no woman can stay attracted to that for long. So instead of saying, you're too good for me, let her feel that you recognize her value and your own, that you're not intimidated by her light, but inspired by it, that you don't see her as someone out of reach, but as someone who makes you want to rise, to deepen, to become even more of the man you already are, because that is what magnetizes her. That is what makes her lean in, not the pedestal, not the praise, but the power you carry when you know you are enough, and that she is too. So take a breath here, let this land. There is nothing more attractive than a man who has made peace with who he is, who doesn't speak to impress or to self-deprecate or to manipulate connection with pseudo-humility. A man who simply is, and lets his being speak louder than any phrase he could say. When you understand this, when you embody this, everything changes, because you are no longer speaking to get something. You are speaking from wholeness. And in that place, words don't kill attraction. They cultivate it. There's something sacred about the silence between two people. The pauses, the glance that lingers a bit longer, the moment she leans in, not because of what you said, but because of the energy you hold. And in that sacred silence, the wrong words, spoken too soon, too softly, or too self-servingly, can break the spell before you even realize what was lost. Let's go deeper now, because there's one more thing that can undo all the good, all the charm, all the chemistry you've built so carefully. It's not cruel, it's not angry, it doesn't sound like sabotage, but its impact runs deeper than almost anything else you could say. I don't really know what I want. Now let me be clear, we all have moments of uncertainty, we all get confused. Desire is not static, love is not linear. But when a man looks a woman in the eyes and says he doesn't know what he wants, not just in the relationship, but in himself, what he's saying is this: I don't know who I am yet. And that, for a woman seeking depth, stability, and masculine presence, is one of the biggest red flags there is. Why? Because it places her on unstable ground. It turns every interaction into a test. One day you want her, The next you're unsure, one moment you're inspired, the next you're drifting. And what begins as intrigue, this mysterious indecisive energy, quickly becomes emotional chaos. She can't relax, she can't soften, because she never knows when you might pull away again. Indecision isn't neutral, it drains attraction, because masculine energy creates safety through direction, through clarity, not control, not rigidity, but purpose, forward motion, anchored vision. When you tell her you don't know what you want, she doesn't feel free, she feels like she's on trial. Every moment now becomes about whether she's enough to change your mind, whether she can tip the scale, whether she's being auditioned for a part in a script that hasn't even been written yet. And the irony, the more she tries to prove herself, the less desirable she feels, because desire doesn't bloom in proving. It blooms in polarity, in her being able to trust that the man before her is emotionally mature enough to know his own heart. So if you genuinely don't know what you want, don't fake it. But don't make her carry that uncertainty. Either do the inner work, reflect, seek clarity before you bring someone else into the equation, because love is not a lab experiment. It's not meant to be tested under the microscope of confusion. It's meant to be entered with presence, if not certainty, at least readiness. And if you are in a season of uncertainty, be transparent with depth. Say, I'm still figuring some things out, and I want to be honest about that, not because I don't value this connection, but because I respect you too much to pretend I'm clearer than I am. That is emotional leadership. That is the kind of honesty that doesn't kill attraction. It builds trust. Because when a woman sees that you can hold your own ambiguity without bleeding it onto her, she feels safe. Not because you're perfect, but because you are sovereign. And sovereignty is magnetic. Now I want to invite you into something more subtle. Not a specific phrase, but a pattern of speaking that slowly chips away at attraction over time. It's the way you talk about your life, the way you describe your days, your dreams, your relationships, your work. If your language is always passive, if it sounds like life is just happening to you, it tells her that you are not the author of your own story. And no woman wants to build a future with a man who isn't writing his own narrative. When you constantly say things like, well, we'll see what happens, or I'm just going with the flow, or things are kind of just stuck right now, you're not being laid back, you're broadcasting a lack of purpose. And purpose, my love, is the backbone of masculine attraction. A woman wants to feel your direction, not because she wants to be led blindly, but because she wants to know you have a relationship with your future, that you're not just drifting, that your energy is intentional, that you can hold the container of your life so she doesn't have to step in and manage it for you. You don't need a 5-year plan. You need to speak like a man who knows what season he's in, who knows what he's cultivating, who knows that even in the unknown, he is moving. When you speak of your life as if you're a victim of it, you flatten your own power, you become less than what you are, and she will feel it, not consciously perhaps, but viscerally. Because feminine energy listens to the tone of your life, not just the words you say. So check your language, not for positivity, but for agency. Speak as if you are at the center of your own choices, as if you are sculpting a life, not surviving one. Let her feel that you are not waiting for things to happen. You are in relationship with your life, and that relationship is rooted in devotion, clarity, and movement. That is intoxicating. And finally, I want to talk about something even deeper than what you say. It's how you respond when she pulls back, because it will happen. She'll get quiet, distant, unsure, and in that moment many men panic. They reach. They text too much. They confess things they don't mean just to pull her back in. They say things like, I thought you were different, or I guess I was wrong about you, or I'm not going to beg for your attention. But underneath all of that is fear, and when you speak from fear, you lose your gravity. A woman doesn't pull away to test you. She pulls away to feel, to recalibrate, to breathe. And in those moments, the most attractive thing you can do is stay anchored, not to ignore her, not to pretend you don't care, but to hold your center, to resist the urge to chase, to let her know, through your steadiness, that you are not moved by every wind of change. That is what makes her trust you. Because if you collapse when she distances, how will you lead when life gets hard? If you unravel when she gets quiet, how will you support her when she's vulnerable, emotional, and certain? Your response in those moments says more than any romantic words ever could. So when she pulls back, stay in your rhythm. Let her come to you, not because of manipulation, but because your grounded presence makes her feel safe to return. And when she does, speak not with panic, but with presence. That is what turns the flame into fire. There's a sacred moment after all the speaking, all the sharing, all the uncovering, when you realize that what truly draws a woman in is not your stories, your strategies, or your secrets. It's your essence, the energy beneath your words. The man who speaks not to be understood, but because he understands himself. That's the truth I want to leave you with. Because all along this journey, we've unraveled phrases that, while innocent on the surface, carry a charge, a signal, a ripple through the energetic thread that connects you and her. And when spoken carelessly, without grounding, without reflection, they create static. They distort the signal. They create doubt where there could have been depth. But what if you remember that attraction is not built in grand gestures? It's built in the micro moments, in the pauses, in the way you enter a room, in the stillness between your sentences, in the steadiness of your presence, in how you respond when things don't go your way, in the way you make her feel seen, without needing to be validated. A woman doesn't fall in love with your confessions. She falls in love with your center. She doesn't want to be convinced. She wants to be invited. She wants to feel that you are deeply connected to your own path, that your joy is self-sourced, your peace is internal, and your need for her is not desperation, but desire. So yes, there are things you must stop saying, but even more powerfully, there is a man you must start being. The man who doesn't say, "I don't know what I'd do without you," because he already knows how to stand on his own. The man who doesn't say, "I'm probably not your type," because he's no longer trying to be chosen. He's choosing to. The man who doesn't say, "I'm scared you'll leave me," because his fear is not in control. His presence is. The man who doesn't say, "My ex ruined me," because he's healed, integrated, and the past is not a weight, it's a teacher. The man who doesn't say, "You're out of my league," because there are no leagues when two souls are aligned. There is only resonance. When you strip all the posturing, all the performance, all the polished phrases meant to attract, you are left with the one thing that always draws her: incongruence. A man who is what he says, who feels what he expresses, who owns his impact, who leads with presence, not panic. This is the man who doesn't kill attraction, he cultivates it. Because his energy is an invitation, his words are chosen, not as weapons or defenses, but as expressions of an already full life. He doesn't overshare to earn intimacy. He reveals at the pace of safety. He doesn't panic in silence. He breathes through it, letting her feel that nothing in her stillness can shake him from his center. He doesn't use his pain to pull her closer. He uses his growth to meet her with integrity. And that is what every woman feels before she even understands why. So I want to speak to the man watching this right now who feels the sting of recognition. Maybe you've said some of these things. Maybe you've watched attraction fade and didn't know why. Maybe you've confused vulnerability with a kind of emotional exposure that left you misunderstood and alone. Let me say this gently but clearly. You are not broken. You are not unworthy. You are not too much or not enough. You were simply never taught how powerful your presence could be when it's grounded, intentional, and emotionally clear. You were told to open up, but not how to contain your energy in a way that creates safety. You were told to be honest, but not how to express your truth without displacing responsibility. You were told that women want realness, but not that realness without leadership feels like chaos, not connection. And now you know. And with that knowing, you are free. Free to stop over-explaining. Free to stop collapsing into fear when she pulls away. Free to stop dimming your value by assuming she's too good for you. Free to stop handing over your identity in exchange for attention. Instead, you become the man who leads, not through control but through clarity, who loves, not through neediness, but through choice, who speaks, not to be saved, but because his words have weight. And when a woman feels that in you, your anchored self, she will trust you, she will soften, she will stop bracing, and she will open, not because of the things you say, but because of the man you've become. So if this video touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let this be the start of a deeper conversation with yourself. Drop a comment below. What's one thing you used to say that now you see differently? And if you want more content like this about love, intimacy, masculine presence, and what it truly means to show up in your relationships with power and softness, subscribe. This space is for you. Here's to your becoming, to the quiet confidence that no longer needs to prove, to the love that flows not from pressure but from presence, and to the words that carry you closer, not because they're perfect, but because they're true. Until next time, stay grounded, stay intentional, and stay deeply, deeply you.